I never believed in fate, but sometimes I wonder if it believed in me. When I lost my job at the freight company, and my landlord gave me 2 weeks to leave, I had nowhere to go, and no one to turn to. The last person I expected to hear from was Raymond Kilmer, an old acquaintance from high school, who used to hang around in the auto shop and dealt pills in the parking lot. He called me late one night, asked me if I needed work, and told me about a private security job in Butte, said it was off the books, paid in cash, and came with a place to stay. I asked what the catch was. He laughed and said the last guy quit after 1 shift, and the guy before that disappeared. I thought he was trying to mess with me, but when he wired me $500 just for agreeing to take a look, I packed my bags and left Missouri. Behind the facility was a concrete block about 3 miles south of Butte, sitting alone on an abandoned access road that twisted through dense pine forest. The structure itself was buried halfway into the mountainside. It had no signage, just a steel gate and a motion sensor that creaked open when I pulled up. Inside the gate, an old ranger-style cabin sat next to the main structure. Raymond was waiting on the steps. He wore a windbreaker, a crooked smile, and dark sunglasses, despite the overcast sky. He handed me a manila envelope with instructions and a key card, told me the facility was originally built in the 70s to store classified federal archives. It had been decommissioned for years. The company that bought it was some private contractor out of Delaware. Name was Pine Deep Logistics. I asked what kind of archives. He ignored the question, just said, "My job was simple. Monitor the cameras, patrol the perimeter every 2 hours, report any breaches, no cell service underground, use the landline if I needed help, never go below the 4th sublevel." He said that part twice. Never go below the 4th sublevel. The air inside the facility was stale, heavy like it had not moved in years. The security office was buried 1 level underground. I took the old industrial elevator, which vibrated like it might fall apart. Inside the office, everything was as I expected. Monitors lined the walls. Black and white footage flickered from dusty corners of long-forgotten hallways and rooms packed with boxers, reels, and sealed crates. There were 10 floors total, 1 ground level and 9 beneath it. Only the top 4 were labeled Sub A, B, C, and D. After that, it was just numbers, 5 through 9. The footage on those lower levels was grainy and darker, like something had damaged the lenses. I sat back and watched. First hour passed in silence. Second too. At midnight I made my first patrol. Everything was as it should be. No broken locks. No sign of entry. When I came back, a yellow post-it note had been stuck to my monitor. The note read, "Do not look at camera 9 not until you hear the soundy." Spun around expecting to see someone, but the room was empty. No footsteps, no draft, just silence. I checked the feed. Camera 9 was pointed at sublevel 9. Black screen. Just a faint flicker like light barely touched the lens. At 2 in the morning, I heard it. A sound like high-pitched wire, tightening in reverse. It was not a beep. It was not mechanical. It sounded like pain. I looked up. Camera 9 had turned on. In the grainy footage I saw what I thought was movement. A flicker of shadow that did not match the angles. I leaned closer. Something hunched was moving in the distance. The thing had no defined shape. It was as though the shadows bent inward to create it, and it was crawling. I should have looked away, but I could not. The screen glitched. Now it was closer. My head felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. Pressure built behind my eyes. My teeth ached. I reached for the power button, but the screen surged with static and cut back in. The shape was now right in front of the lens. 2 holes where eyes should have been. No features, just ripples across pitch-black skin like it was absorbing the light. I blacked out. I came to with blood dripping from my nose and the clock on the wall flashing. 3:05. The monitors were normal again. All except camera 9, which was back to black. The post-it note was gone, but a new one had taken its place. This time on the back of my chair, it read, "You looked too long though, not let IT follow you, UPSTERS. My heart stopped. I turned to the door. It was closed. Then I heard something climbing the elevator shaft. The sound coming from the elevator shaft was not mechanical. It was wet, organic, something between the squelch of bare feet on tile and the hiss of a snake wrapped in wool. I stood, completely still. I could hear my own heartbeat, fast and uneven, hammering against my chest. The security room had no weapons, no emergency button, no backup lock. Only one camera showed the elevator. Camera 3, Sublevel B. I tapped the keyboard to bring it up. The image stuttered for a second before stabilizing. The elevator car was stuck between floors. The doors were halfway open. Something was pulling itself up through the gap. It had fingers, dozens of them, each one long and pale and jointed the wrong way, bending and twitching as it slithered higher. I shut off the monitor. I did not want to see its face. The emergency stairs were behind a locked gate near the archive hallway. I grabbed my keycard and crept out of the room. My head was still pounding. The air in the corridor was thick with the smell of damp stone and something sweet, like old meat left in the sun. As I passed the filing rooms, the lights above flickered. In a steady rhythm, dot on, dot off, dot on, dot off, the light bulbs buzzed like hornets. A door clicked open behind me. I turned around fast. Nothing. Just a dark hallway leading to the electrical closet. I walked faster. The stairwell gate creaked when I opened it. I prayed the sound would not carry. The stairs went up to ground level and down to sublevel 9. I took one step up when the air shifted behind me. It dropped 10 degrees instantly. My breath turned visible. My ears popped. I froze. Then I heard it speak. It did not use words. It spoke like a memory. I heard my father's voice from a decade ago, saying my name just once. Then my mother's voice, laughing, then weeping, then screaming. I bolted up the stairs. Something followed, not close, but near enough that I could feel it in my spine. The echo of its movement made no noise, but my thoughts screamed, "Run! Do not stop! Do not stop!" When I reached the ground floor, I slammed the stairwell door shut and jammed my keycard into the manual override. It clicked. The red light stayed on. Locked. The moment the lock engaged, the pressure in the air vanished. Whatever it was did not like doors. I leaned against the wall and tried to breathe. My body was shaking. My palms were wet. I felt my blood pulsing against my fingertips like it wanted out. I stayed there for 10 minutes. When I looked at the corridor ahead, I realized something was wrong. This was not the ground floor I had entered from. The hallway was longer, too long. The light was wrong too. It had a green tint that made the walls look diseased. I moved slowly forward, looking for any sign of the entrance. There were no windows, no signage, no exit. Only one long hallway and 3 doors. The first door was open. Inside was a room filled with mannequins, each one wrapped in tattered cloth, their faces smooth and featureless. One of them was facing the wall. A projector buzzed above, showing silent black and white footage of what looked like an operating room. The mannequin facing the wall twitched. I shut the door. The second door was cold to the touch. I reached for the handle and pulled gently. It opened into a perfectly white room with a single chair bolted to the center. A recorder sat beside it, tape running. A voice played back through the speaker. It was mine. It repeated my name 3 times, then said one word I did not recognize. I shut that door too. The third door was locked, but it was the only one with a label, Sublevel 4. I checked my keycard. It worked. The door opened onto a staircase, leading down. The facility had changed. The rules were breaking. I took one step down when I saw something carved into the wall with deep GOUS. It read, Rule 1 of ear, go back, my foot froze mid-air. I heard. The elevator doors open above me. Something stepped out. Slowly. Wet lie. It had followed me up after all. I could not go back up. The carved message on the wall was not scratched in panic. It had been etched with purpose. Clean, sharp strokes, like someone had taken their time with it. Rule 1. Never go back up. But something was up there. I could hear it moving now. Not walking, dragging, as if its limbs were too long or too broken to move normally. Each step was deliberate, wet, scraping. I descended into sublevel 4. The moment the door shut behind me, the sound vanished. Silence rushed in like a vacuum. Not a single hum from the walls, not a flicker from the overhead lights, just stillness. I realized then that the stairs were wrong. The geometry was twisted. What looked like 15 steps down took me nearly 5 minutes to walk. At the bottom, the air felt thicker, like it carried weight. I reached the hallway and stopped. The floor tiles were pristine, white, almost polished. The lights buzzed faintly overhead, but cast no shadows. There were 5 doors on either side, all closed, all unmarked. A 6th door stood at the end, bigger than the rest, made of reinforced steel, with a small red keypad on the side. I tried the first door on my left. Inside was an old conference room. Everything was frozen in time. Notepads with names, cups with dried out coffee. A film of dust coated the table, but the chairs were perfectly aligned. A dry erase board showed a date, April 14th, 1997. A sticky note in the corner had one word, stay. I backed out slowly. The second room was filled with jars, hundreds of them. Each one held something different. Teeth, nails, fingers, eyeballs, all preserved in a yellowish brine. Some floated peacefully, others pressed against the glass, as if aware of me. I shut the door harder than I meant to. That is when the lights flickered. Not a normal flicker. They went completely out, came back on, in a different color. Red this time, and all the doors had changed. They were open, every one of them. From within, something was whispering. But the whispers were not in English. They were layered. Dozens of voices, overlapping and crawling into my brain like insects burrowing through cotton. I turned toward the steel door at the end of the hall. It was still closed. I ran. The keypad blinked red. I tried my keycard. It did not work. I tried random numbers. Nothing. The whispers grew louder, more frantic. Some of them started crying. Others were repeating my name again and again in a child's voice. Then, I saw the keypad flicker. It flashed one word. LeVay stepped back. The door opened. Behind it was not a room. It was a stairwell, but it went down. Not just a little. I could not see the bottom. The staircase was narrow and made of black iron. The air smelled like ozone and mold. Every instinct in my body screamed not to go further. But I remembered what the wall had said. Never go back up. I took the first step. The door behind me slammed shut and locked. I was trapped. The stairwell twisted downward in impossible ways. Sometimes, the steps flipped beneath me. Sometimes the handrails switched sides. I lost track of how long I walked. Then I saw her, a woman standing on the stairs below me. She wore a hospital gown stained brown, with old blood. Her head was tilted too far. To the left, her neck bent like a snapped branch. Her hair floated, as if underwater. She smiled without lips. I backed up. She did not follow, but I heard the voices again. And this time, one of them was mine, screaming, pleading. I ran past her. I reached a landing. No number, no sign, just a door. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a bedroom, but not any bedroom. It was mine, from when I was a kid. Exactly how I remembered it, in 2005. Posters on the wall, the toy chest, the scratch on the window frame where I had carved my initials, and on the bed was me, lying there eyes open, smiling. I shut the door and screamed. There was no way back, only deeper. I ran, not because I had a plan. I ran because staying still felt like giving up my soul. Behind me, the door to my childhood room was still open. I could feel the version of myself inside it watching me. I could feel his smile curling wider, even without seeing it. The hallway outside was wrong again. No more stairs, just a straight path lined with filing cabinets, taller than any building I had ever seen. They stretched up forever, like iron towers filled with the dead. No light touched the top. I could not even see a ceiling. Only the faint, sickly yellow glow of small lamps bolted to the walls at random intervals. Each drawer had a tag. Each tag had a name, not just any names. My old teachers, my childhood friends, my neighbors, my first girlfriend. One by one, I passed their names, written in the same precise handwriting on stained paper. I stopped when I saw mine, the drawer labeled Richard Allen Mercer. I reached out to touch it, but the moment my fingers brushed the handle, the cabinet moaned. Not metal, not rust. It moaned, like something inside it was suffocating. I pulled back, then it slid open on its own. Inside was not paper, inside was a small cassette recorder, just like the one I had seen in the interrogation room earlier. Tape was already in it. I hit play. I heard my voice. It was breathing, unsteady. Then I whispered 5 words. You should not be here. Then nothing. I dropped the recorder. It shattered like glass. That was when I saw the light at the end of the hallway begin to pulse. Not white, not red, but blue. Cold, blue, electric, and sharp. The kind of light that cuts into your vision and leaves trails. It was coming toward me. Each time it pulsed, the filing cabinets shook. I turned and ran deeper into the corridor, not knowing where I was going. My ankle throbbed with every step. My lungs burned. Then I passed a cabinet that was already open. The tag was missing. Inside was a photograph. I knew it instantly. It was from the day my brother died. A car accident outside Great Falls. I was 12. He was 15. The picture showed him in the driver's seat, but his face was gone, burned away, blackened like overexposed film. The back of the photo had one sentence burned into the paper. You should have died instead. I dropped it. The blue light was closer now. It began flickering, faster and faster. The ground shook with every flash. Then I saw what was casting it. A tall figure, easily 8 feet high. Its body made of exposed nerves and veins wrapped around flickering blue tubes. No skin, no eyes. Its mouth was a permanent scream that never opened or closed, just stretched wide, frozen in a moment of agony. The closer it got, the more my vision began to warp. I started seeing things inside its body. My mother, my brother, a version of me, screaming inside a glass cylinder, banging on the inside like a trapped animal, faces pressed to the veins. Still alive, I ducked into a side passage. The walls here were soft. They pulsed. The smell was unbearable, like rot mixed with melted plastic. Every inch of the tunnel felt alive. I tried not to touch the walls as I pushed forward. Then the tunnel opened into a round chamber, a library. Bookshelves lined the walls from floor to ceiling. But the books were not books. They were skin, sewn and bound and labeled with names. Some of the covers twitched. In the center of the room stood a mirror, old, cracked, covered in grime. But I saw my reflection. It was not me. It wore my face. But the expression was wrong, hollow. Its eyes were darker, mouth tighter. It blinked when I did not. Then it smiled and reached out. From inside the mirror, it pressed its hand to the glass, and the surface rippled. I backed away, but my hand brushed against one of the books. It opened. There were no pages, only a gaping mouth inside it, screamed, and from the mirror, the other me stepped out. It stood in front of me, my face, my height, my build, but it was not me. Its skin looked soaked in something slick, and black, like it had crawled through oil or blood to wear me. The eyes were hollow, darker than any natural color. It studied me without blinking. I felt it breathing in perfect rhythm with mine. Each rise and fall of its chest matched me exactly, too perfectly. I stepped left, it stepped right, not a mirror image, a delay, like it was studying me, then choosing to mock. The skin book beside me began to spasm. The mouth inside it let out a low groan. I kicked it away. The shelves above shook. More books opened. Mouths everywhere, whispering in hundreds of voices. I ran, not toward the tunnel I came from. There was a second opening behind the mirror. I dashed through it, heart pounding so hard I thought my chest might cave in. Behind me I heard footsteps, but they were wrong. Too fast, no rhythm, like bones clicking against metal. The corridor ahead was tight. The walls were glass. Behind each panel was a room. Hundreds of them, each one different. I saw a version of my mother, sitting in a rocking chair, staring straight at me. Her face was pale, lips sewn shut. Next to her, a clock melted over a dresser, ticking backwards. Another room held a version of me hanging from the ceiling by invisible threads. My mouth was open in a scream I could not hear. In another, I saw nothing but eyes, thousands of them, blinking in unison. I kept moving. The lights flickered violently. The glass to my right exploded. I dropped to the floor, covering my head. Shards sliced into my arm. I pushed up, breath ragged, and saw the thing wearing my face, standing just inside the broken panel. Watching, smiling, I took off down the hall again. The walls began to change. No longer glass, no longer metal. Now it was like rough stone, damp, and ancient moss clung to the cracks. The temperature dropped. My breath steamed in front of me. Then I saw the stairs again. Down, down, always down. This time there was no door. Just a spiral staircase carved directly into the stone, leading into darkness. The walls wept with moisture. Carvings lined the sides. Symbols I did not recognize. Some moved when I looked directly at them. I hesitated. Then the footsteps came. Again behind me. Closer now. I ran down the stairs 2 at a time, ignoring the pain in my leg. My shirt was soaked. My shoes slipped on the wet stone. The air below was not just cold, it was wrong. It buzzed, like thousands of small things were flying just out of reach. I swatted the air and felt nothing, but I could hear them. Then the stairwell opened into a chamber. It was massive, an underground rotunda with a dome ceiling stretching higher than any cathedral I had seen. In the center stood a massive sculpture, not of a god, not of a man, something between. Its face had no features, just an open mouth that spiraled inward, lined with teeth that spun like turbines. Around the base of the statue, people were kneeling, dozens, but they were not alive. Their skin had calcified. Their eyes were rotted but locked open. They were frozen in mid-prayer. Each wore the same uniform I did, the same security badge, the same boots. Some had my face. I staggered backward, nearly slipping in a puddle of something thick and red. That was when I heard it, a voice from above, the thing that had followed me. But this time, it did not sound like me. It sounded like my father, not how he sounded when he was alive, how he sounded during the last call I ever had with him, right before the overdose. He said my name, said he was proud of me, then begged me not to hang up. I turned slowly. The thing wearing my face was gone. Now it wore his same eyes, same beard, same shaking voice, but something inside me knew it was not him. I said nothing. It reached toward me, hand trembling. The voice changed again. This time it was my voice, but older, broken, worn down. I realized what it was showing me, what I would become if I stayed here, if I gave in. The hands of the stone worshippers began to twitch, one by one. They started to move, creaking like statues. thawing after centuries of silence. Their heads turned toward me, their mouths opened, but no sound came out. Not yet. I ran toward the far end of the rotunda. A narrow archway waited there. It was barely visible. Behind hanging chains and torn curtains made of uniforms, I pushed through and found another stairwell. This one was made of bones, human, still wet. Each step was a rib cage, each railing a spine, and beneath me, I heard something breathing, something massive, and I knew, without any reason or logic, that I was about to find the heart of this place, and it already knew my name. Each step squelched the bones beneath. My feet were not dry. They bled. My boots slipped in marrow and slick tissue. Something whispered inside the walls. I could not see mouths, but I heard them. Thousands thought they spoke in bursts. Sometimes my name, sometimes numbers, sometimes the screams of people I once knew. The staircase descended in a spiral too tight to be natural. I began to feel gravity pulling sideways. The walls grew narrower, the light dimmer. Then it opened. No more stairs, no more structure. I stepped into an open chamber that was impossibly large, larger than any building, larger than any city. A vast black pit pulsed with red veins that stretched like a web across every surface. Above me, the ceiling moved. Not air dot, not clouds. It was flesh, a giant living membrane that breathed. It inhaled slowly, then paused, then exhaled, hot, rotten air down into the pit. The smell made me drop to my knees. My stomach emptied, but I kept dry heaving long after. My vision blurred. My ears rang. When I stood again, I saw them, hanging from the ceiling. Dozens of human bodies. Naked, limp, but their eyes were open, glowing red. They tracked me, each one moving just enough to be noticed. None of them spoke. They just watched. At the center of the chamber was something alive. Not a creature, not a machine, a heart. But no heart could be this big. It stood taller than a building. Wires and veins poured from it in every direction. Each beat shook the room. The floor rippled. My bones vibrated. I approached slowly, not because I wanted to, because something inside me forced me to dot my legs, moved on their own. My breath shortened, and then the voice came again, not out loud, inside me. A voice I had not heard since I was 6 years old. The night I was locked in a basement for 12 hours by a neighbor who thought it was funny. A voice that comforted me, that told me I would survive. It was my brother's voice. He said, "You were supposed to come back sooner." Said nothing. He said, "You were always supposed to come back then." The voice turned cold. He said, "But you forgot me." The heart pulsed hard. A spray of black fluid shot from one of its veins. It hit the floor and sizzled like acid. Shapes began to rise from the surface of the heart, figures twisting, writhing, flesh and bone fused together. Some of them had faces. One of them was mine, but older, worn, its eyes missing. It smiled without lips. Then it reached down toward me. I backed away, slipping on the wet stone. The fluid burned through my pants, blistering my skin. I screamed and rolled, but the pain followed me. I tried to run, but my legs would not obey. I collapsed. The floor beneath me opened. I fell. No sound, no sensation, just darkness, then light. Blinding white light. I stood in a hallway, clean, silent, fluorescent. Lights above, fresh tile below, a security checkpoint ahead. The same checkpoint I had started at, back at the surface, back at the beginning. But I knew it was not real. It looked like the first floor of the Federal Archives, but the air was dead. There was no sound, no buzz, no hum, no breath. I stepped forward. The world did not move. Even my shadow did not follow me. I touched the wall. It crumbled like paper. Behind it was nothing. Not space, not darkness, just absence. I ran to the nearest door, pushed through the hallway on the other side, led to a familiar office. My old supervisor's desk, the chair behind it, turned slowly. He was there, but his head was gone, replaced with a mirror. I saw myself, older again, my uniform tattered eyes, hollow. I stepped closer, my reflection did not move. Then it whispered, "You, already." Made it down new. Never came back up behind me. I heard something wet crawling across the floor. It came through the mirror. Not all at once. First an arm, then a shoulder. The glass did not break. It bent, like water holding a form. The figure was me, but wrong, taller, thinner. The skin stretched too tight across the skull. Its eyes were completely black. Its uniform was soaked in something thick and red, and it dripped as it stepped into the room. It stared at me without blinking. Then it smiled. No lips, just a split across the face that peeled upward. My legs tried to move, but I was frozen. The thing spoke with my voice, but it came from inside my own head. "We do not need both." Then it raised its hand and pointed to the floor. I looked down, another mirror. Inside it, I saw not one reflection but thousands, all versions of me. Some older, some younger, some twisted, some screaming, all staring up. One of them mouthed the words "choose." Then the lights went out. For a long time, I saw nothing. I heard footsteps circling, whispers like wind curling through the gaps in my mind. Then, I was somewhere else again. A waiting room. Clean, white, silent dot, except for one sound. A ticking dot, a countdown, on the far wall. A timer blinked, red numbers. 0 hours, 1 minute, and 48 seconds. Then falling. A woman sat behind the desk, but her face was gone. Completely smooth skin where her features should have been. She lifted a clipboard and handed it to me. It read, "Name, _date of entry, unreadable reason for descent, redacted number of deaths, remembered, to number of deaths remaining." One at the bottom, it said sign. To continue I did not sign. I dropped the clipboard and turned around. But the door I came through was gone. The faceless woman stood up without moving her legs. Then she whispered, "We only needed one of you to reach the bottom." The timer hit 0. A loud tone rang out, and then the floor disappeared. Again, dot falling. This time, there was no wind, no air, at all, just black, and then light. And then I was standing in a room I knew well, my childhood bedroom, but it was not how I left it. The walls were covered in photographs, all of me, every age, every expression. But the eyes in each photo had been burned out. There were dolls on the shelves. Every one had my face. They all turned toward me as I stepped into the center of the room. Then a television on the floor flickered on. Black and white footage. I saw myself, again. This time as a child. Walking through the hallways of the Federal Archives facility. But that was not possible. I had never been here as a child. Had I? The screen zoomed in on my face. It did not blink. Then the footage showed me walking into a door, marked Sublevel Omega. Then static. Then screaming. I turned to run, but a voice from behind me said, "You are already in the tape." I turned. My mother stood there, but her skin was wrong, hanging, gray. Her eyes were empty, sockets filled with teeth. She said, "You were born in the wrong direction." Then she split down the center, and from her came a sound I will never forget. Not a scream, not a roar. It was the sound of my own heartbeat slowing and then stopping. I fell again, but this time I did not land. I floated by what felt like hours. Memories drifted past me, all the things I tried to forget. My first panic attack, the night. I watched someone fall in front of a train and told no one. The lies I told to keep a job I hated. The time I hurt someone just because. I could. All of it laid bare. And then I heard breathing. Not mine, but above me. Below me. All around. Massive. Steady. Ancient. I whispered, "Who is watching me?" And a voice like stone said, "You are watching yourself." And then I was back in the hallway. Concrete. Cold. Door. 10 stood ahead. The final one. The lock was open, the handle waiting. But behind me, I heard footsteps. And someone said in my own voice, "We were never meant to leave." I turned the handle. It was cold. Metal that had never known light. The door did not creak. It sighed, and then it opened. Darkness inside. No room, no hallway, no stairs. Just the sound of water dripping, and the distant grind of stone against stone. I stepped through at first. I was falling again, but it was different this time. Not vertical, not spatial. I was falling through thought, through memory, through every version of me that had ever existed. And then it stopped. I stood on a black floor that stretched out forever. Above me was nothing. No ceiling, no sky, only the sound of a heartbeat, not mine. I walked forward, and then I saw it. A throne made of broken mirrors, and on it sat the man from the security footage, the one with the mirror for a face. But this time I understood. It was not a face. It was a door, a doorway into every life I had ever lived. The man stood, and when he spoke, his voice was mine, all of them, every version layered over each other. "You finally reached the center." I tried to speak, but my mouth was gone. I had no voice, no body. I looked down and saw that I was not standing. I was hanging from strings, like a puppet, and behind me, something moved, a wall of faces, all mine, thousands of them, each one staring, each one mouthing the same word. "Tritor, the man approached. He raised one hand and pointed to my chest, and I remembered. Everything not in flashes, all at once. The archive facility in Cheyenne was never just a government building. It was a route, a branching point. It reached into places time did not touch, places thought could not reach. I was not hired to guard it. I was grown from it, created by something beneath the 10th sublevel, not born split. One version of me had escaped decades ago. One had tried to warn the world and was erased. One had returned, and now I was the last one left. The man pressed a hand to my forehead, and my skin turned to glass. I saw every face I had worn, every lie I had lived, every moment I believed. I was human, all of it shattered. And then I heard a voice from deep below the black floor, a voice that did not speak. It pressed into my thoughts. "You are not a man, you are a memory wrapped in skin, you are the door that opened to far the strings pulled tighter." And my limbs moved without choice. I stepped onto a circle carved into the floor. It glowed faintly, not with light, with recognition. It knew me. It remembered me, before I was anything. Then the throne of mirrors cracked, and inside, it was not a body, it was a second version of me, still sleeping, a perfect mirror copy, eyes closed, breathing, and then they opened, and he said, "You should not have come back." I fell to my knees, not from pain, from understanding. There was never one of me, never one job, never one life. There was only a loop, a system designed to find the version that could break the cycle, and I had. And now I was being erased. The mere version of me stepped forward. He raised his hand, and from his palm, a third tape recorder appeared. No label, just blood. He pressed play, and I heard my voice say, "Third time you died." The world folded. The faces screamed. The floor opened, and I was falling again. But this time, I knew what I was falling into. Not hell, not death, but origin. No more light, no more sound, only pressure, like thought had weight. Like memory was crushing me from all sides. I fell for so long that time began to break. Years passed, then reversed, then vanished. I was a child again, then nothing. Then I opened my eyes. I stood in a small white room. One chair, one table, and one object in the center, a fourth tape recorder. Still warm, still wet. Carved into the metal were words I had not seen before. The first recording, I did not touch it. I knew what it was. It was not a message. It was not a clue. It was a key. The voice that had followed me through every level, every lie, every scream. It was mine, but not from now, from before. from the version of me that started this. I sat down in the chair. Across from me was a figure. No face, no features, just shape. It leaned forward and said, "Do you remember why you came?" Here I opened my mouth. No words, only a sound like glass breaking in a vacuum. The figure nodded. It placed its hand on the table, and the table split open. Inside was a heart still beating mine. It had been removed long ago, but it never stopped. The figure said, "You made it 10 levels down. You walked through yourself. You saw every life you abandoned, and now you must choose." I whispered, "Choose what?" It said, "To stay or to return." Behind me, I heard footsteps. I turned, and I saw every version of myself that had died in this place. Some screaming, some silent, some begging, all waiting. One stepped forward and said, "Diff, you go back. We stay here trapped endlessly, watching you forget." Another said, "Diff, you stay. The world forgets you, but the door closes forever." Looked down at my hands. They were no longer flesh. They were light, shifting, breaking apart. I was becoming something else. I looked at the 4th recorder, and I pressed play. My voice spoke clear, unshaken. "This is the first and only recording. If you are hearing this, you have reached the origin point. You are not a person. You are a fracture in the system. You are what they built the archive to contain. You are the truth they buried 10 floors down. You have one choice: return to the surface, or end the story here." I stood. The versions of me fell silent. Even the figures stopped moving. The heart pulsed once. Then again, I placed my hand over it, and I said, "I remember now. I was never sent to guard the archive. I was the archive, the memory that refused to die, the pattern that survived erasure, the loop that learned. And now I would make a new choice. Not return, not stay, but burn it all." I clenched my fist. The heart stopped, and the white room cracked. Light poured from every surface. The versions of me screamed. The figure laughed, and the world above began to fall inward. The building in Cheyenne imploded. Every record inside turned to ash. The tapes erased themselves. The doors below melted. The 10th level vanished. And for the first time in the life of the world, the archive was gone. A pilgrim woke up in a field. Grass wet with morning. No buildings in sight. No name in my head. No face in the mirror. Just a note in my pocket. It said, "You chose to remember," and beneath it, a single word, "Run." So I did. And as Ronnie heard a sound far below the earth, a tape spinning just once more before silence.